Hey, I am Hannah, your host. You are listening to Let's Talk People, a podcast about my messy musings as a trained counselor. And today's episode is about how being brave is actually really scary. I've been turning this idea over in my head for months now, maybe even over a year. And it's something that it first kind of clicked for me in my counseling training. And it's just one of these ideas that I can't get enough of. Every time I look at it, I want to keep looking at it. It's just so satisfying. And I keep unraveling and unwrapping it. I'm not sure I've nailed the idea down yet crisply, so bear with me, but it's about being brave and being scared. I used to think that they were kind of opposites. I just assumed, without really processing, that people who were brave or people who did things that I thought were brave just weren't scared. They just didn't get scared. I remember seeing an interviewer a few years ago, I think it was. He asked Elon Musk, you do all of these risky things. You make these risky decisions. How did you become so fearless? And for a second, right before Elon answered, I remember waiting for his answer. I was just bought into this idea of how does he do that? How is he so fearless? And then, of course, he says that he gets afraid just like everyone else. He isn't above the fear. He doesn't feel it less than you or me. He just doesn't act from that scared place. And then he goes on to say that it's in part because he takes the time to understand his fear. That when he was a kid, he said he was afraid of the dark. But then when he understood that dark was just like the absence of light, he stopped being afraid. It's a funny thing we do, or I do, that when I see someone deal with something I think is scary and do it in a way that they don't look scared, I just assume that they're not. I just assume that the difference between them and me is that I have fear and they don't. They have they are just above it. But if that's true, if the difference is fear, then fear is kind of the problem, right? And if fear or having fear is the problem, then that means I'm stuck because I don't choose to have fear. It just comes, So here's the idea I landed on in my counseling training. It's a bit of a reframe of being brave. And it's that it's actually brave to be afraid. It's brave to be scared. That to be scared is to be brave. Which I think makes sense, right, on the surface, that it takes guts to let ourselves feel afraid and then not run from the scary thing, to kind of look at it a while. The Karate Kid, the original movies, this is one my favorite movie series of all time. And if you know that about me, it's just only a matter of time before I brought this up in one of my episodes. But okay, the last fighting scene in the third movie, where Daniel is trying to defend the championship that he won in the first movie, there's this part where he's getting beaten up really badly. Last fight, everyone's watching, it's for the title, and the guy, the opponent, he's actually trying to hurt him. He's not just trying to win the fight, he's going after all of these cheap, illegal shots to create, to put Daniel in pain. And in between this one point, Daniel just drops to the floor, and then Miyagi runs to him, and Daniel's yelling. He's yelling at Miyagi, and he's I can't do it. I just can't. He's bigger than me. He's stronger than me. I can't win. And Miyagi has to cut him off and tell him to zip it. And he says, this is such a good line. He says, "It's okay to lose to your opponent. You must not lose to fear." And then right at that moment, something switches on inside Daniel. The music changes. He taps into this inner strength, maybe something deeper than fear. And he gets in this zone and he wins the competition. And yes, it's a movie and it's made up and it's orchestrated and scripted, and hard things don't always turn around so perfectly, but they can. Like, we can choose. For me, the point in the movie isn't that Daniel won. I mean, of course, that's like the highlight. But the real point is that Daniel did the scary thing, which is actually the really brave thing, which is to be afraid. To stay with the fear and stare at it a little while until you figure out your next move. 5, maybe 6 years ago, I tried to set up a bunch of businesses. I taught myself how to make jewelry. I set up a jewelry store on Etsy for a while. I made t-shirts, designed t-shirts for a while. I tried an affiliate business. I did freelance copywriting for a bit. And with all of them, I would research how everyone else made money doing that thing. And some people would talk about like how they struggled in the beginning and that made them more relatable. But they would always then do it from this vantage point of like, now they've figured it out. I mean, of course that makes sense, right? Like they were trying to sell a course or have you kind of trust their process. But as soon as I saw their end product, whether that was the jewelry shop or these like big name copywriting clients, I just assumed, like my default setting was that they had it figured out all along. So that when I went to build my t-shirt store or to write copy, as soon as it got hard and intimidating, and in the case of like writing copy, it took so many drafts and versions, I would get really impatient with myself. I would just assume that I was doing it wrong. All I could see was like, I was afraid and they're brave. So I just assumed that they never got scared. They never had fear. But I know that's not true, right? We all have fear. And so when I rewrite the story with what I know that being scared, being messy, things being hard, things taking longer than you want or expect, doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you're not brave. It actually means that you are. Because being brave is actually really scary, really hard work. It might not look pretty, it might not feel good, it might not feel like you're being brave, but that is brave. That is brave. Kind of cool, right? That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Find me on Instagram, follow me, DM me. My handle is HANNN_AH, and I will see you back here very soon.